So hello everyone. We are on our second online conversation organized by Oseminars, BoMoVu and Alan Savuması with the support of the Farenet Fund for Black Lives Matter in football. And we've been organizing those online conversations with the title of anti in parentheses racism in sports in order to actually discuss how anti-racism, but most importantly racism, does work in different strata of the sport complexes. And so last week we had the chance to have a conversation with the Rohingya football team who is remotely trying to survive inside the world, and is has built their own team in from different remote places of the world, because of course it's a diasporic team. And um, and inside this unfolding genocide that the Rohingya people are going through, so there is this this light of hope. This is how we called it. That has been brought by football, because football has provided them space to claim that they still exist, which is so much powerful and important. And inside this claims, and inside this th- these words that they need to put forward, CONIFA has been an important taken an important place for the Rohingya team, which is the recognition. So when people is going under the threat of genocide, they can find recognition through very small mechanisms, and one of them is the CONIFA. So today we are very thankful that to welcome the CONIFA organization, who will be speaking about how this organization works and what it means for people such as the Rohingya to have this recognition done. And so we are here with Jason and Motoko. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we will be trying to do the moderation, İlknur Hacısoftoğlu and myself, Nil. So yeah, drawing from, I will let you introduce yourselves first, and then I'd like to ask you first question. Motoko, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. When I recognized the CONIFA organization, is 2014, the first World Football Cup in Östersund in Sweden, and I am a journalist, and I featured this CONIFA World Football Cup, and it's a very I had a very strong impression about the teams or the people, or the how important for the world this kind of organization. So the after I came back to Japan, and I talked with the United Koreans in Japan. It's not yet they had such a name, but the Japan and Korea, the northern and southern Korea, they had a fight, and once Japan dominated the Korea, and they forcefully took many Koreans to Japan, and once the 400 400 million Koreans lived in Japan, and almost all of them came back to after the war, but they stayed in Japan. Some of them stayed in Japan, and their ancestors lived in Japan, and they had a very good, very strong football team. The football is very important for them. And so I talked to them that there is a very nice organization that you can play as the Koreans in Japan team in the CONIFA. And then 2016, the CONIFA invited the United Koreans in Japan to the second World Football Cup. And I took them to the Abkhazia there, and in London too. And that because I am now in the Asian president in Japan, Asian president of CONIFA. And you talked about the Rohingya people, and there are the Rohingya football team in Japan here, and they established it. The team, it's one of the immigrants, Rohingya immigrants living in Japan, established it, and we played some. We took some tournaments as the CONIFA in Japan tournaments, and they played the game. So the Rohingya people in Japan, it's 800 people here in Japan, and the football is very important for them, same as the Koreans in Japan team. So it's just my dream, but it's we have the Asian Championship holding in Japan, and with the Rohingya or the some minorities of the Myanmar or the India, and also the much Koreans, and it's Tibet, some kind of teams, and they're together with the football tournaments.
Yeah.
It's my introduction. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Motoko. Jason.
Hi Neil and Igna. Thank you for having us on this session of chats, and it's extremely grateful for BoMoVu for having us on. My name is Jason Heaton. I'm General Secretary for the CONIFA, and I'm just looking forward to having a good conversation.
Great, thanks. So I'll start with my first question, which is about actually, so we've been discussing, and Motoko has explained, for example, which teams do take part in the CONIFA from the Asian side. But I'm wondering, because this being a minority or being without a state, which is taking you out from the FIFA actually, is something that is universal. This happens everywhere, but it happens in very different ways.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask first, what is the criteria for selection to be able to take part in the CONIFA Cup? You need to.
The criteria for competing. So say if you want to enter a World Cup, you can accrue points in the 2 years previous, and then so you'll get the most amount of points to put you in to a major tournament. That's pretty much how it works. But because of CONIFA's sort of unusual sort of take on the sport, if you like, it's extremely difficult for teams to be in any sort of set league or group. So getting points, there's an existing system that allows you to get points as simple as possible. So the team in question quite often exists within the confines or boundaries of a country or an FA, but you, as a CONIFA team, can go and play any team and start to amount your points. So if you, say, play a local club team, let's say grassroots, you get 3 points. I think you get 1 point. Do excuse me, I might get the points slightly wrong, but you get 1 point for playing the game or 3 points for the win. If you play a team that is professional but from your locality, then you get 6 points. If you can manage to actually play a CONIFA team, then I think it goes up to 12 points. So, you know, obviously there's more impetus there to try and play CONIFA teams. But ultimately, it's a points-based system that allows you to get to a major tournament. It might be slightly different next year because we had to cancel the World Cup this year. So we've taken the opportunity to, with the money that we had from sponsorship, to invest it in more local, more continental championships next year and restructure how the whole thing will work. So those that were qualified for the World Cup this year automatically qualify for a continental championship for those teams of that continent, which ultimately will lead into a World Cup the following year. So, but it's quite tough, and some teams, say like on the African continent, for instance, if it is that we get an African tournament together, which we're pushing for next year, what teams can get there, and you know, I think there's 4 teams that are actually European based, so it's extremely difficult. But we're pushing to try and get money and recognition on the continent and build up to a World Cup in the future.
Okay, so thanks for providing this technical information. Can you tell me about the philosophy of this CONIFA? And actually, before the philosophy, I'm curious about what do you think it means for stateless people to be part of such a big organization?
Oh.
And do you have any testimonies in mind?
Every team's a testimony, that's for sure. And I would say that knowing the background of some of the teams, as you do, speaking to Ryan last week, but every team has a very unique story, quite often comes from some sort of suppression. It means everything to be able to identify with who you are, your people, and put your communities out onto an international stage to fully represent your cultural identity is, I don't know if there's in sport anything bigger. Of course, within that community, there's sporting people that are really looking to find a platform to actually play the game of football as it is with CONIFA, and there are, you know, professionally minded human beings within that setup that can't wait to just simply put a ball on the floor and compete. You know, so there's always that element, but I think you know, one of the big that's never to be taken away from sport. That's sport. But I think with CONIFA being the only sporting association in the world that recognises people before borders, it makes it a very unique place to be in and a very proud place to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if there are some, I mean, how do you deal with conflicts that might happen between teams, and can you tell us about this concept of friendship that is very apparent in your communications?
I think conflict in sport is part of the competition. I think you're always going to have heated debates, especially for people's, well, there's always clash. We're not all on exactly the same frequency level. But I think ultimately within CONIFA as a family environment, over and above friendship actually, we try and keep it as more of a family environment. We are able to come together after in close proximity and sit down, break bread, and and get over it together. You know, it's actually a fundamental part of the whole tournaments and how CONIFA exists. So yeah, the sort of friendship side, if you like, there's a lot of cooperation and collaboration over competition, as I've touched on, but you know, and then we're trying to make sure that the impact off the field and that the recognition is there. So I think when we're extending the arms of friendship, as you say, as you rightly said, you know, friendships for life is what's on the signature of the email. For me personally, I think if you've got the intention and the meaning of long-term friendship and a relationship basis before you've made contact, I think that's where you should be. You should be looking to engage at a deeper level, and you know, and really make sure that the opportunity, the doorway is there for people to come through and be themselves. And that's kind of where you've got to come from. First contact.
I can only imagine how much complicated this must be. I know on your website, I think you were supposed to have a competition in Karabakh, which is now torn by war. So
yeah, Karabakh was actually last year. It was the European Championships in 2019. Obviously, a very beautiful country, beautiful people, and they hosted an exceptional tournament. It was without equal. You know, it's such a beautiful place, and as you say now, war is at the door, which is good for nobody.
But which also gives even more meaning to such organizations as CONIFA, being on the field over there.
Yeah. I think when sport and you know, a love of what you do and a sort of passion for what you believe in and what you want to see out in the world that can override the small-mindedness of destruction and killing as war brings, then that's where we have to be. We have to underpin that and support that. It's I think it's crucial to humanity as a whole. Yeah.
So can you tell us about this football for all? What do you mean? What is inside this all? Who is all?
Who is all? Everybody, all people, whatever walks of life, you know. And I suppose, you know, not everyone might want to play football, but there's no getting away from the fact that it is a great communicator and a great facilitator, and it does really touch on people's hearts. And for some reason, it is the most popular sport in the world. For what we could digress that question all day as to why it is so special, but it just seems to have that attraction. So I think football for all just seems to sit in nice, really, you know, with what we represent.
Motoko, do you think this football for all might mean something different in Asia?
Yes. Football for all is a CONIFA spirit, the basic spirit, I think. And when I first participate the CONIFA tournament, I didn't know any of the team's name. For example, the what is Kurdistan, what is Tamil, and so in my head it's all questions, and I talked with them, and they talked about their history or their story and how important football is for them, and for the example, the FIFA or the Olympic Games, they say that it's always nation background, but their background is their history, their language, and their story.
Yeah.
And it's a football for all means that all these people who don't have any, national background, and even they don't have the national background, and they are not permitted to put their flags, their flags, flags there. And it's only CONIFA who can demonstrate their flags or anthem, and but they are, how to say, football for all means that all these people who cannot have the who are not permitted their anthem, or that they play the international game as their name, as their, for example, Kurdistan or the Tamil, or for the United Koreans in Japan, like that. Yeah. So if FIFA or the Olympic Games says that the football for all, it's not true. CONIFA says is the truly the football for all split. Yes. I think.
Nice.
Thank you.
So another question linked to that.
Yes.
It is obvious that if you are organizing a platform for people who have no state, so who have no place to represent their identity, the racism issue is on the table. Because these people mostly attack to racism in their own countries, in the lands they live. So is there any policy for anti-racism in CONIFA? What kind of perspective you have towards racism?
It's better that Jason.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Tolerance, above all. You know, just by CONIFA's very existence is based on recognizing people for who they are and allowing people to become in and be absolutely themselves. So I think on that very notion alone, it's if we're going to use the term anti-racist, you know, we've got to be big enough, and we've got to be brave enough to recognise that ultimately we're all connected, we're all part of humanity, we all have a part to play, and that is the tone we take. So we don't have it, you know, written down where, how can you say, there's a discriminatory call against this, that and the other. We have to be open 100% from the start as to what people feel, who they are and what they represent. And it's just taking that line constantly and above all else. You know, it's the term racism doesn't really come into CONIFA a great deal, if that makes sense, you know, because we're dealing with people on a level basis at all points, which I think personally the rest of the world could maybe look at as a way of going forward, especially in doctrines set by governments.
One thing, can I talk? I'm not, I don't know enough about the European and African continents, but in Japan, when the Koreans in Japan always have the very severe discrimination in the Japanese society, and it's openly hate speech for them. And they have a team, United Koreans in Japan team, and they play game all the league season against the Brazilian or the other ethnic people. And sometimes the Japanese people and the Japanese team, the players, did talk their very discriminative language to them, and I was always very irritated and angry against them, and so I took them to the tournaments, CONIFA tournaments, and then some Japanese media talked that the CONIFA is the how to say anti-Japan, or the go back to the to Korea, or they go back to China, or like that. And CONIFA, we don't need CONIFA. I was told sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the so they say CONIFA told that it's not a political organization. We don't speak. We just talk about the football. But sometimes in Japan, CONIFA is people think that CONIFA is the political organization.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's tough. I think as well, I'm just touching on the sort of discriminatory side of some of the teams that do play within CONIFA. If we touch on Carpetalia from the Ukraine, they won the 2018 World Cup. They came in as a wildcard towards the end, had an amazing tournament and won it. And when they returned home, they were all imprisoned for 3 weeks. And their families were told that they're going to have to leave the country, the players would have to leave the country. And just because of they were a threat to the state in a communistic sort of overlying way, you know, because they've chosen to represent themselves and it didn't quite fit the parameters. So that's quite often what we find, you know, that countries and borders don't really want people to represent themselves. They want to see the country and the flag that they're flying at that time represented. So that can be quite a tough one, you know, that a team that's just won a World Cup gets jailed. That's a pretty tough situation. So, you know, within CONIFA, it's all a level playing field. It's but you know, I think where where it becomes difficult is when countries don't want people having that recognition. Yeah, but that's why we're there. That's why we've got to do what we do.
I think it is all understandable in some manner, because, you know, actually the contradictory nature of mega events and its structure based on the national representation of national identities.
Yeah.
And it's very contradictory with the sports for all philosophy, in spite of all Olympic values, etc.
Yes. Yeah.
But CONIFA, from the other sides, does the same thing. Provides a space for people to represent their cultural identity, but for them who can't at the rest of the world.
That's right.
That's why they see it as a kind of political organization.
Maybe.
It's a kind of politics, but with another.
And
yes.
And you know what politics is like. They'll try and drag anything into their game, and they'll certainly jump on any opportunity to push their narrative. So quite often CONIFA has to take the shots. It takes the body blows, it takes the kicks, but it's absolutely nothing compared to what people who are representing themselves within CONIFA have quite often been through, and the history.
On the other hand,
say that again.
I have a question about that.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. You provide a culture, you provide a space for them, but still they have prejudgments against each other as well. They can have these groups. Do you have any policy for that, for sharing of culture without any prejudgment in CONIFA? Even in CONIFA, with that philosophy, you can leave that problem.
Well, we don't seem to have a problem in it, sort of with the people that run and operate CONIFA on a daily basis. I think it's extremely difficult to take away prejudices within a people's to its very core. There's some paradigms and thinking that's been given to people that is extremely difficult to take out of their psyche. And also, you've got to think that some teams have got most teams have got a strong fighting spirit. So when you've got that strong fighting spirit, sometimes you are going to end up at loggerheads with peoples. They might have some sort of history. They might come from 2 neighbouring countries. You know, that they might have been at war for 50 years. But when they sort of come into CONIFA and at tournaments, they still have to play this. They still have to tell the family line. They've got to, and that is really the most that you can ever do, because it doesn't matter what you write down or what you say to people. It's about the environment, and ultimately you might come together for an 8 or 14-day tournament, but those people have just come from 50 years of entrenched warfare, you know, and it might go back hundreds of years. So, but when you come into CONIFA, it has to be, as best we can, facilitate along those family lines to try and even some of these teams have still got to realise that they are human beings and your neighbours are human beings, you know, and you've got to respect each other. But I think it's tough. Sporting environments are a tough place to be. And for the most part, everyone's very good. But, you know, you get the odd person, or it's usually a small group of people that really want to upset things. So you've got to try and override these, and you can't stop people talking, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, but fortunately, should I say. But you can't stop people saying malicious things. No, it's just impossible. So it's just about trying to find that nice balance, you know, and create and sticking to your core values, as you guys would know.
So, Motoko, you talked about the fact that there was no flags allowed, but the CONIFA flag. Is there any other regulations or steps that you're taking to try to maybe educate about the culture of the other and this openness being bred inside the stadium or during or around the game maybe?
Yeah. I think the flag is very important for them, and but the how to say, the other people think that the flag and anthem is very dangerous. They think that this is very dangerous. It's a very sensitive problem, and just in CONIFA tournaments, they can demonstrate their flag and anthem, but the outside of the stadium they think that it's a politically very, very dangerous thing. Yeah. So it's a very dangerous message. Even now, it's a discrimination, but the how to say, for example, the Tibet, the China never never admit the Tibet flag, but the Tibet anthem it's just in the outside China, and the how to say, it's very sensitive.
Yeah. I mean, just to back you up there, Motoko, as you're quite aware, when it comes to Tibet, the Chinese government will follow Tibet around the world and try and get in any way they can through sponsors, if they've got any Chinese connections, and try and close that game down at any point. When it came to the World Cup in 2018, of which Tibet featured, there were many people who wanted to sponsor the tournament. And, you know, as we got down to putting ink on paper, one of the overriding things would be, yeah, we're quite happy to sponsor the tournament as long as Tibet don't play. So we had to forgo any monies. We just had to say, well, that's not going to happen then, the deal's off, you know, because Tibet have got a right to play. And that's something we had to stand for. But the pressure that comes through is immense. And that's just one example.
And also, so one thing is last year I prepared for the we held the Asian tournaments, Asian teams, immigrant teams, and the first time in 15 years, Rohingya teams put the flag of the Rohingya flag at the tournament, and then police came.
Yeah,
it's and we had hidden the flags, and the police left. We put the flag, Rohingya flag.
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. I can understand that. And yeah, it's very important to see and to inspire from all these stories actually in the world who really fights for equality in sports and to see sport for all in the field. And when it comes to recognition, one of the groups who has the most problem is the woman, actually, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And in CONIFA, to be recognized is very important.
Yeah.
But sometimes even in these cultural groups, there are gender differences.
Massive.
And, when it comes to football, it becomes more visible.
Yeah.
What kind of policies have CONIFA for women football? What kind of activities you have for women football to develop?
I'll just jump in on that one. Just in terms of activities, there's any team. Just so you know, any team can have a women's team, and it's all sort of all very open.
Yeah.
Say that again.
It's still separate.
Yeah, we've it's not been released yet, but we've got a venue for the first CONIFA Women's World Cup next year. It means it'll be working with 2 clubs in Romania, and between them, the 2 clubs, they've offered to host up to 240 players and personnel, facilitate, put the games on, feed everybody. I've sent out the sort of, if there's a declaration of interest to all 60 members, and they've just been coming in over the last few days. So, you know, as far as we're concerned, there'll be a Women's World Cup. Would like it to be a World Cup. Just what depends on is how many people come from, I suppose, outside of Europe in to determine that it's a World Cup. And then seeing what costs can be covered, to see what monies we might be able to make available for those that find it harder to get there, is kind of where we're at with that one. That's just from a tournament perspective. I suppose but you're right, within sort of cultures, women don't have a say in whether they can play football or not. So just trying to open that door is extremely difficult, but we are opening the door. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Motoko?
Just I have to think about it.
As far as I know, Motoko, CONIFA has a perspective on women's football. What kind of barrier women have on football, and how CONIFA can provide for women football, right?
Women's, yes, women's football.
And we talked to it before.
Yeah, and how about Jason? It proceeds well? Yeah, I don't know, but
Who's barking?
situation is different from the men's business dog.
Whose dog is this?
I do apologise. It's my beautiful little dog that's very excited when the postman comes to the door. So my apologies.
It's okay.
Perfect timing.
It's okay.
Perfect time. And I'd love to get up and do something with him, but
Okay.
I think he's calmed down now. Sorry, I do apologise.
It's okay. We are not hearing you. Motoko, so what, sometimes when Jason is talking, it comes to my mind. Sometimes, in spite of some cultural barriers, encouragement policies can work for women.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Once again, please.
Of course. Sometimes in different cultures, women can have barriers to join football or sport. But the encouragement policies of institutions can work in that kind of conditions. For example, some international sport organizations have this kind of encouragement policies for women. Sometimes some sanctions they use to include women. So what kind of perspective CONIFA have on that in Japan and in general?
The CONIFA's member are it's minorities and also immigrants or the isolated lands, and these districts or these countries or the nations have the very strong prejudice in or assumptions for against the women's football, not football, but the women's sports. And they don't like to their girls, their daughters or their wives play football, just play exercise. They don't like it. Now in the developed countries, the people know that the sports is very good for the health. Even the women have to do some sports, but I found that some CONIFA members community think that it's just the men, sports is for men, not girls, and that especially not the grown women don't have to do the sports like that. So the CONIFA, the first step for CONIFA is the can I share this one?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. The first step is that give girls or the women the opportunity to kick a ball. Just not play. Kick a ball is just now they are not the CONIFA members, but there are the African Darfur United girls. It's a immigrant refugees camp in one of the volunteer group taught the girls that they are all Muslims and that they are grown up in the refugee camps, and then they once they are the men's team is the CONIFA member, and the girls or the grown women talk to the volunteer group that we want to kick a ball. We want to be the footballer. And they established a team for girls team. And many of the girls kick a ball. It's the first step.
Yeah.
Then I recognize that the CONIFA, the first step is gives opportunity for women in minority group, and to give them the prepare the balls or just a ball, one ball or two balls, just okay, and kick it, and it's a starting point. And the first step for the CONIFA is to give us a chance, and then what gave you is encouragement and empowerment. Not to be the footballer or a professional footballer. It's just enjoy it, and you can do it. We can do it. It's the first step. And here is the CONIFA members women's team. Did that match last year, and the Women's Friendship Cup is Northern Cyprus and the Sami of the Swedish and Norwegian and it's a northern part of the Scandinavian countries. And it's I watched the tournament, and it's a very, very high level. But it's probably the top, but basically it's just the if you kick a ball once and you get confidence, and also you get the empowerment
and enjoy the game.
It's now it's very difficult to overturn the many prejudices, assumptions, but the CONIFA prepare for the chance to kick a ball.
Oh, that's the first step, really. Yeah.
Motoko, what age do they? Because in Japan,
yeah,
girls only plays football at school until they're 14. Is that right?
Yeah. So sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
In Japan, is it that girls only play football at school until they're aged 14?
Yeah, and in Japan, it's football is the school program, but it stopped for the 14 years old. That means the second grade of the junior high school, they stopped because they think that's
it destroys their community.
Yeah.
In the puberty period. That's the puberty period. So they think that it destroys their femininity.
Wow.
That's because that, and if you want to play football after 14 years old, they have to go to the special high school. Special, and when they go to the special high school, and they have to be the professional footballer.
Wow. We did.
In other case, they don't let to play football at school.
Not school. Not the school.
No.
And they till 14 years old, there are the clubs for girls for the till 14 years old. After 15 years old, don't have any club.
Wow.
It's just high school, special high school, sports school.
Sports high school.
And there's 50 or so high schools that have the course for the women's footballer.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Until a certain year in Turkey as well, girls doesn't let to play football in their physical education class, but
Wow.
changed later. But of course, we still have problems about the inclusion in women's football.
Yeah.
Women are very
Yeah,
new
it's tough.
in football in Turkey as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did have a little breakthrough when we put the World Cup on in London in 2018, and it's minor, but I think it all counts. Is we put some football games, some of the matches on at Slough Town Football Club, it's just outside of London, and we put Punjab FA played there. So did United Koreans of Japan actually. And it's right in the Kabylian community, and it's in a Punjab community. Now, it's the club itself has never been able to engage with the community on its doorstep. It's a predominantly white person football club in the UK that's not been able to engage with the Punjab community. And we thought, if we put the games on there, there's a chance that the club and the community can come together. But also within the club structure, there was an amazing general secretary there called Kay Lathy, a really powerful woman in my eyes, and she'd been at the club for 20 years.
Oh,
and she'd started girls football. But what had happened is that sort of Asian players in the UK have been trying to break through on the British scene for a while. So we're kind of thinking, well, at least there's an opportunity to put the community together with a club. But what had also happened is that some the Punjab girls had actually gone to start playing football at this club, but they couldn't quite make one team because they were of all varying age groups. So it went like from 14 to 8, and Kay had about 10. So what we did is, not only did we put the games on there and sort of join the communities together, but we also gave the girls the opportunity to play in front of the crowd as like a curtain raiser to the game. I just thought it's incredibly brave of those girls to try and step out of that bubble that exists, you know, and it was just a nice little story of how CONIFA actually offered, you know, a little opportunity that it gave, you know, for those girls and the woman that made it all happen and join the two communities together. Yeah.
So as you know, we're live streaming on YouTube at the same time, and right now we have received a question from comment.
Yeah.
And so the question is from Ruby and Kagawan, and she's asking,
Hi, Ruby.
Can CONIFA send trainers and coaches to help form grassroots teams in a new member group?
Sometimes, yeah. Obviously, because we're the volunteer organisation side of it, does mean that it constantly attracts people that are looking to do something more in the world, to give back, and it's quite often been the case that people will sort of come through CONIFA and end up in a different part of the world to put in their expertise and help build things up. That does happen a lot. I'm actually familiar with Ruby. She's out in the Philippines. We contacted about 2-3 weeks ago, and she is looking to, I think, bring CONIFA to the Philippine Isles and have a representation for the 9 sort of separate ethnicities within the island. So yes, it does happen on quite a regular basis, and I quite often get emails whereby people are looking to maybe move to certain parts of the world and see if there's an opportunity where they might be able to go and put their services in. So yeah, it does happen.
Of course, I guess it's a matter of funding and opportunities too, which leads me to also just want to remind maybe to Ruby, maybe she saw this before, but organization WomenWin has launched a fund called the On-Site Fund, which is targeting feminist approach for doing sports on the grassroots level.
Wow.
And it's leverage the gender equality in sports. So there is very few funds in sports development for minorities, even less for women.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very difficult, and
maybe she should get those details off you then. I think you get along well with her, but she's already done some quite big stuff herself. And she's, I would say she's a very powerful person in her own right, and she definitely makes things happen. So I think connecting with you guys could be very positive all around. Yeah, 100%.
Wonderful. Do we have any questions inside this room?
Do excuse the light on my camera? Don't know what's going on.
No, they
It's
can.
gone dark.
Yes.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Jason and Motoko, for this interesting conversation.
Can you speak louder, please?
Oh, yes, I have microphone issues over here.
No problem.
Good
to meet you.
Better now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just gonna go over my question. I was wondering if, at any extent, does CONIFA engage with problems of participants teams beyond football? Their problems in their own communities. It doesn't have to be with another community in their where they live, but just within their own communities. I was wondering if there are any engagements or if you take any step towards the solution.
Yeah. Hi, Selko. I'll jump in. Yeah, we're currently just off the top, if you like. We are just started an engagement toolkit initiative global, by which, because a lot of our members struggle for funds and actually struggle in confidence and don't really know how to engage or build up businesses, but yet they've got the good foresight to want to represent themselves. So we've put together not so much a task force, a team of sort of business people, creative writers and such like. It's quite small, but with key elements and key people being touched on, by which we send out a presentation that we've put together that explains what CONIFA is about, and where that member might sit within CONIFA as a tool that we can personalize for that member, so that and we can encourage them to make contact and engage with companies, the media, how to sort of control that, what to do when engagement comes back, because some people simply don't know where to go with their engagement. So yeah, we're really pushing on that. It started about 3-4 weeks ago, but it was originally, the idea came around originally about 2 years ago. And it's kind of, since I've come in as General Secretary, we've been able to hone down the process and pull a team together by which we can help members engage at a much better level, add that confidence and help them to build up their own infrastructure. Some people might just need help negotiating on a contract, how to deal with the sort of contractual agreements of media and negotiate such like. So yeah, we are looking to really further help people in that regard. And we have a team of, I would say, more than qualified people to help along that lines that have got a number of years at executive level within the sort of media industry and at business level as well. So yeah, we're really looking to hone in now on how we can help that member develop.
Thanks, Jason.
It's no problem, Sal. Yeah, thanks for your question. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? And if not, is there closing remarks you'd like to do before we finish this session?
Motoko, would you like to add anything to finish?
Yeah. I think that in this world, where the many immigrants or the people who lived not in the native countries, or the for the women who suffer from the discrimination, they need CONIFA, I think. And the CONIFA is the football association, but since I joined CONIFA, now I think that this, it's not just a football, it's a friendship, or the recognize other people. CONIFA gives some ideas how to know each other and recognize each other. And it's through football, but it's not just a football. It's a friendship and cultural exchange organization, I think.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think I'd just like to add as well is that I feel that everything that we're touching on with discrimination, sort of racism, and not accepting people into society, is that we have to make sure that we don't build an industry sort of off the back of the problem with regards to that. Yeah, we recognize the problem, but we have a duty, we have to maintain that we've got a duty to act, and that everyone's got a duty to act, and say that that discrimination and racism just simply is not acceptable. We can't rely on people that we very rarely see, and it's a handful of people that are coming down from the top, putting into place doctrines, and then standing around saying, well, we've been told to be like this, we've been told to be like that. You can just take the initiative. You can stand there and say, I do not accept this as a way of being with people that I live around and for. So I think people on the whole have to take the initiative and not accept it. You know, at the end of the day, the opposite of courage is not cowardice, it's conformity. And more people have to be more courageous more of the time to make a massive difference. But we're all capable of.
Oh, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
It was a great pleasure to have that with you, for me.
Yes.
Neil.
Thank you so much. You're bringing hope in the lives of many people.
It's an honour to have been able to come on to your talk show. It really is, and we're very grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Me too, thank you very much. It's inspired.
Thank you very much, Motoko.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
It's a pleasure.